The call comes, and the job you counted on is gone. A plan you built your life around collapses overnight. We have all faced a moment when the path we chose vanishes, leaving us staring at a future we never wanted. What if you could not only survive that moment, but come to love it? This is the promise of an ancient idea called Amor Fati, the Stoic art of loving your fate. It is not about passive endurance, but an active embrace of every event, good or bad, as a necessary part of your story. The Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius wrote in his private meditations that we must accept whatever happens to us as necessary to the destiny of the whole. This video is your guide to that transformation. You will learn how to see adversity not but as the raw material for building unshakable strength. We will explore the core Stoic principles that make this possible, from mastering your perception to cultivating a resilience that bends but never breaks. How would your life change if you stopped fighting your story and started loving it? The call comes. The job you counted on is gone. A plan you built your life around collapses overnight. We've all had that moment. The path you chose just vanishes. You're left staring at a future you never wanted. What if you could not just survive that moment, but come to love it? There's an ancient idea, Amor Fati, the Stoic art of loving your fate. It's not passive endurance, it's an active embrace, every event, good or bad, as a necessary part of your story. The Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius wrote this in his private meditations. We must accept whatever happens to us. It's necessary to the destiny of the whole. This video is a guide to that transformation. You'll learn to see adversity differently, not as a random blow, but as raw material for building unshakable strength. We'll explore the core Stoic principles, mastering your perception, cultivating a resilience that bends but never breaks. How would your life change if you stopped fighting your story and started loving it? The Stoics had a particular view of the universe. They didn't think it was random. They saw it as one living, rational thing. They called this the logos, an intelligent principle. It orders everything. It weaves all events, all people, all moments into one interconnected whole. So nothing happens in isolation. Every single event, from history's grand sweep down to your own personal disappointments, is a thread in that larger fabric. It all happens for a reason that serves the whole. That's the foundation. Your fate, however it looks, isn't a mistake. It's not a cruel joke. It's a necessary part of a rational, beautiful order. And that changes the idea of fate, from something you endure to something you understand, and ultimately to love. Epictetus said it clearly, do not seek for things to happen as you wish. Wish for things to happen as they do happen, and your life will go well. That's the shift, moving from resistance to alignment. Modern life can feel like a series of random shocks. A traffic jam ruins your morning, a project falls apart, a personal hope fades. We see these as isolated misfortunes, attacks on our individual plan. The Stoic asks us to pull the camera back. What if that traffic jam prevented a minor accident further down the road? What if that failed project cleared the way for a better opportunity? One you couldn't see yet. This isn't naive optimism. It's about trusting the pattern when you can only see a single thread. So here's a question. Think of one recent event you fought against. Something that felt purely like a setback. Now, for a moment, consider it through this lens. What if it wasn't an error in the system? What if it was a necessary part of the system? And how does shifting that perception begin to change the weight it carries? When something difficult happens, what part of that is actually yours to own? That's the first thing to figure out. The Stoic teacher Epictetus, who knew a lot about hardship, had a tool for this. He called it the Dichotomy of Control. Some things are up to us, he said, and some things aren't. What's up to us, our opinions, our impulses, what we want, what we try to avoid, basically anything that's our own action. What's not up to us, our body, our possessions, our reputation, any position we hold, anything that isn't our own doing, that distinction is the compass. It cuts through all the noise in a situation and shows you where your power actually is. Amor Fati isn't about loving the external event itself. You can't control the storm. You can only control getting your ship ready and how you decide to sail. Amor Fati is about pointing your love, your energy, your focus toward the one thing you do control. Your response, take being stuck in traffic, the jam itself, the red lights, the other cars, that's all external. It's outside your control, but your internal reaction, that's your domain. The building frustration, that feeling of wasted time, the story you tell yourself about how this ruins everything, that's your judgment. That's where your choice is. You can choose to see it as someone stealing your time, or you can choose to see it as 10 minutes to listen to music you love, to just be with your thoughts, to breathe. The event is neutral until your judgment paints it. That's the Stoic secret. The world happens to you, but your character happens through you. So here's something to try. Think of 3 things bothering you right now. A difficult person, a money worry, a health issue. For each one, ask a simple question. Is this within my control? If it's outside your control, your job isn't to fix it. Your job is to change your attitude toward it, to meet it with acceptance, and then to look inside your own sphere of control for the next right action you can take. That's how you start to navigate. You stop wasting energy fighting the wind, and you start learning how to set your sails. The mind is the artist. Events are just the raw clay. Amor Fati is the decision to sculpt something beautiful from that clay, and that's where the philosophy becomes practice. It's in the Stoic Discipline of Assent. That's the pause, the critical pause between something happening and how we react. In that space, there's a choice. We can give our assent to the first interpretation that comes up. Usually it's negative, or we can stop and choose a different one. The Stoics called this power proherses, your faculty of moral choice. It's your ultimate inner freedom. No external event can ever touch it. It's how you decide what any event means. Marcus Aurelius put it clearly. Remove the judgment, and you remove the thought, I am harmed. Remove that thought, and the harm itself is removed. The event is just a thing, the story we tell ourselves about it. That's what carries the weight. Think of 2 people caught in the same rainstorm. No umbrella. One walks home miserable, cursing the sky, soaked and angry. The other decides to feel the rain, to notice how it cleans the air, to walk slower and just experience it. The rain is the same. The judgment is entirely different. That's the art of seeing anew. It's not about denying reality. It's about selecting the most empowering interpretation available to you. The truest one. The Roman philosopher Seneca got a brutal demonstration of this. He was exiled by the emperor, sent to the island of Corsica. By all external measures, it was a catastrophe. He lost his home, his position, his whole life in Rome. He could have spent years in bitterness, understandably, but he chose a different judgment. He reframed exile. Not as a punishment, but as an opportunity. He realized it was a chance to dedicate himself fully to philosophy and writing, free from the distractions of the city. The politics, he used that time to produce some of his most profound works. The external circumstance was harsh. His internal use of it was transformative. So how do you start practicing this? Begin with something small, almost trivial. The next time you're stuck in a long line, or your internet drops for a minute, or you spill a little coffee, in that moment catch your first frustrated thought. Then consciously ask, what's another way to see this? Could this delay be a chance to just stand and breathe? To people watch, to have a moment of unexpected quiet. Could the spilled coffee be a tiny reminder to move more mindfully? You're not pretending it's wonderful. You're simply exercising your proherses. your choice to find a thread of benefit or neutrality. Where you once only saw annoyance, you're training your inner artist to see the potential in the clay. So what one minor inconvenience today could you choose to reframe? The Stoics had this idea. The things we complain about, the things we see as curses often, those are the gifts we actually need. That's the paradox. What looks like a wall is really the path. What feels like a burden is the weight that builds your strength. They called it the obstacle is the way. An obstacle forces a decision. You can go around it, or you can go through it, or you can let it stop you. But in that moment when you're forced to decide, your character gets tested. It's revealed. That's the forge where virtues become real. Courage isn't the absence of fear. It's moving forward while you feel it. Patience isn't just waiting. It's active endurance with a clear mind. Temperance isn't denying yourself pleasure. It's exercising wise judgment under pressure. You don't learn these things when life is smooth. You learn them when the road gets rough. Marcus Aurelius put it in terms a Roman would understand. Our inward power, when it obeys nature, reacts to events by accommodating itself to what it faces. It turns obstacles into fuel, like a fire. What would have put out a lamp, a bigger fire uses as fuel. What's weak gets extinguished, but a bright flame devours what's piled on it. It grows brighter. The obstacle, the hardship, is the fuel for a stronger fire. Think of a modern entrepreneur. Their first venture fails. It runs out of funding. The product doesn't connect. The team falls apart. By every external measure, it's a loss. But in the Stoic view, that failure isn't the end of the story. It's the essential training. It taught them lessons no business school ever could, about cash flow, about market fit, about their own limits and their own resilience. That failed venture provided the exact, difficult education needed to build the next one, the one that succeeds. The obstacle was, in fact, the only way to that future success. It was the gift. So take a moment, look back at one past difficulty, a job you lost, a relationship that ended, a personal goal you missed. Now, instead of seeing only the loss, ask yourself this. What 3 skills or strengths did navigating that challenge help you develop? Maybe it was patience. Maybe it was the ability to ask for help. Maybe it was learning to budget. Or to listen more deeply, or to trust your own judgment. That list is the real treasure from that experience. It's the proof that you're not just surviving your fate. You're being shaped by it. From a human lifetime, your problem can look like a mountain, but from a century's view, it's just a stone on a long path. That's the Stoic meditation called the view from above. It shrinks problems down to their true size, not by dismissing them, by placing them inside the context of time and space. To love your fate, you need to see it clearly. And sometimes you have to pull the camera way back, so the whole picture changes. The Stoics would contemplate the cosmos. They'd imagine looking down on their city from above. Then seeing the whole country, then the curve of the earth, then the planet as a speck in an infinite universe. They'd also stretch their minds across time, reflecting on all the generations before them and all the ones that will come after. Marcus Aurelius did this constantly. He wrote reminders to himself. Think of the whole of existence, of which you are the tiniest part. Think of the whole of time, in which you have a brief and fleeting moment. Against that scale, your personal triumphs and tragedies lose their overwhelming gravity. The promotion you didn't get, the argument that's haunting you, the plan that fell apart, these events are real, they matter, but their intensity is often a trick of proximity. Seen from a sufficient distance, they're just part of the flow. This isn't about making your life feel insignificant. It's about making your anxieties feel manageable. It's recognizing that everything you experience, the joy and the sorrow, is temporary. Beautifully, heartbreakingly temporary, and that impermanence is the very condition that makes your choices meaningful. How do you apply this when a loss is fresh? Take a professional rejection. In the moment, it feels like a full stop, a definition of failure. Now apply the view from above. This single event is one point on a timeline spanning decades of your career. You have felt pride before this moment, and you will feel it again. The person who delivered the news, and even the company itself, will one day be gone. New industries will rise that you can't yet imagine. Within that vast frame, this rejection is not an ending. It's a data point. It's a redirection. Its power to define you dissolves when you see it as a small, necessary turn in a much longer journey. The same perspective can soften a personal loss. The pain is real and deep, a testament to your capacity to love, but seen from the scale of a human life and the chain of lives before you, this experience connects you to the universal human story of love and separation. It is part of the contract of being here. This understanding doesn't erase grief, but it can hold it, making it something you can carry instead of something that crushes you. So here's a simple way to practice this today. Take a current worry, something that feels large and immediate. Write it down on a piece of paper. Now, beneath it, write a single sentence about this worry from the perspective of your future self, 10 years from now. What would that older, wiser version of you say about this moment? Would they remember it as the catastrophe it feels like now, or would they describe it as the turning point? The lesson, the strange gift that set a better path in motion. This act of mental time travel creates instant perspective. It lets you meet your present fate not with panic, but with the calm understanding of someone who already knows how the story unfolds. You start to see your life not as a series of emergencies, but as a narrative you are lovingly, consciously composing. Some Stoics looked at fate and saw a guiding hand. Others saw only chaos, but both ended up in the same place. Love it. There's this tension right inside the philosophy. Was the universe a rational order with a kind of providence? That's what Cleans thought. He believed every single event served a divine purpose, or was it just a vast web of cause and effect that was Chrysippus? For him, fate was just the unbreakable chain of all that happens. Cleans saw providence. Nothing happened without a reason. Your personal struggles, the unexpected turns, they were all threads, woven by a benevolent intelligence into a tapestry too big for you to see. To love your fate was to trust that weaver. Chrysippus had a more logical view. The cosmos was a single, living organism, governed by natural law. Every event was the necessary effect of a prior cause. Your fate was the sum of all the causes leading to you. To love it was to understand that order, to align with it, not fight against physics and logic. And the beautiful thing is, the practical instruction stays the same. Whether you see a divine plan or just a complex dance of cause and effect, your job is identical. Your task is to align your will with reality as it is. Seneca wrestled with this in his letters. He wrote that we have to accept the laws of life, whether they come from God or from fortune. The source of the event, he said, matters less than our reception of it. If you get a gift, you thank the giver. If you get a challenge, you thank the giver for the strength it will build. That internal posture of acceptance, of finding the usable thread, it doesn't change. So how does this look in a real life? Take two extremes. First, a lucky break, a surprise promotion, meeting someone wonderful by pure chance. If you lean toward providence, you might see this as a gift, a sign you're on the right path. Your amor fati is gratitude, a commitment to honor that gift. If you lean toward chance, you see a fortunate collision of causes. Being in the right place with the right skills at the right time. Your amor fati is still gratitude, but also a clear-eyed recognition of the conditions that led to it, and a responsibility to steward that good fortune well. Now the harder example. A tragic accident, an illness, a sudden loss. For the providential view, this is the ultimate test of trust. It asks, can you still believe in a benevolent order when your piece of the tapestry feels torn and dark? The practice is to look for what becomes possible. The potential for growth, for depth, for compassion that such suffering uniquely makes possible. For the chance view, the event is a terrible but natural outcome. A million causes: genetics, physics, circumstance. There's no malicious intent, just the indifferent flow of nature. Here, Amor Fati isn't about finding a hidden meaning. It's about asserting your own meaning upon it. It's your decision to respond with courage, to help others, to find a way to live fully even within this new, painful reality. The external cause is different, but the internal work of courageous acceptance is the same. This leads to a question: which view feels more true to your experience of the world? Do you sense a pattern, a guiding current in events, however subtle? Or do you see life as a series of random, if connected, occurrences? There's no right answer. But your inclination shapes your inner dialogue. If you believe in providence yet struggle to accept hardship, you might battle feelings of betrayal. Or confusion. If you see only chance, you might battle feelings of futility or meaninglessness. The Stoic remedy for both is to return to the one thing that's undeniably yours. Your proherses, your power of choice, your ability to say, "This happened. I did not choose it, but I choose what it will mean for my character. I choose to find the fuel within it. I choose to love my fate, not because of where it came from, but because it is the only material I have to build a life of virtue." In that choice, the debate between providence and chance quietly ends. All that remains is your response and the person you become by giving it. You can't hate something you're genuinely thankful for. Gratitude is what makes Amor Fati real. It's the engine, the active force that turns acceptance into love. For the Stoics, gratitude wasn't just politeness, it was a fundamental recognition. A recognition that everything we get, from the air we breathe to the hardest lesson, is a provision, even when it comes in disguise. That's where philosophy meets daily life. Marcus Aurelius would start his day with a simple meditation. He'd remind himself of the gifts he was about to receive, the people he'd meet, the work he'd do, even the potential for hardship. He gave thanks in advance, not because every moment would be pleasant, but because every moment offered material for virtue. That morning ritual set his compass toward gratitude. It made him more likely to find the gift in whatever the day brought. So how do you build that muscle? There's a Stoic exercise called premeditatio malorum. Negative visualization. It sounds dark, but its purpose is positive. It's not about fearing loss. It's about appreciating the present by acknowledging that nothing is permanent. You take a moment, you vividly imagine life without something you value. Your health, your home, a loved one's presence. You don't dwell in fear, you just touch the reality of impermanence. And then you return to the present. What happens? The ordinary becomes extraordinary. The simple fact of being able to walk, to see, to have a conversation. It all shines with a new light. You realize these aren't guaranteed entitlements, they're active gifts. This practice fuels Amor Fati. When you deeply appreciate what you have, you're far more likely to meet its potential loss or its difficulties with love instead of resentment. Let's make it concrete. Tonight, before you sleep, try this. Take a notebook or just a quiet moment. Name 3 things that happened today. Make one of them a difficulty you faced. A frustration at work, a personal friction, a plan that went wrong. For each of the 3, find one specific reason for gratitude. For the 2 good things, that's easy. For the difficulty, that's the practice. Ask yourself, what did this challenge offer? Did it reveal a hidden patience? Did it force you to communicate more clearly? Did it just remind you of what you truly value? Maybe the traffic jam gave you 10 minutes of solitude. Maybe the difficult conversation clarified a boundary. The reason doesn't have to be grand, it just has to be true. That act of seeking the thread of benefit, however thin, is you actively loving your fate. You're training your mind to default to gratitude, not grievance. And in that shift, the entire quality of your life begins to change. The universe doesn't keep a ledger. It just doesn't, and expecting it to, that's a recipe for resentment. We have this deep desire, almost instinctual, for the world to be just in a transactional way. For good deeds to be rewarded, for effort to be matched by outcome, for cruelty to be punished, and when that equation breaks, which it constantly does, we feel betrayed. This obsession with cosmic fairness, it's one of the biggest walls between us and loving our fate. It keeps us focused on what we think we deserve, instead of what we can do with what we have. The Stoics made a distinction here. They separated cosmic justice, which is unpredictable and often absent, from personal justice, which is entirely within our control. Personal justice is just acting with virtue in every situation, regardless of how others act, regardless of the outcome. Amor Fati requires releasing that childish demand for the world to be fair to you. It asks you to become fair, to become just in your own character. Epictetus had a teaching about this. He said, when you go to take a bath, you picture the things that happen there. Some will splash the water, some will push, some will be rude, but you don't get angry. You simply tell yourself, I came here to bathe and to keep my own will in harmony with nature. He applied this to every area. Don't be surprised, he said, if a fig tree produces figs. Don't be surprised if the world produces exactly what it's designed to produce. And that includes difficulty, rudeness, what we perceive as unfairness. The tree is just being a tree. The world is just being the world. Your job isn't to curse the tree for not giving olives. Your job is to tend your own garden. So where does this show up? Look at the quiet bitterness of envy. When a colleague gets a promotion you feel you deserved. When someone seems to succeed through luck while you struggle with integrity, that burning sense of it's not fair, that's a signal. Your attention has drifted outside your own sphere of control. You're auditing someone else's ledger instead of balancing your own. The Stoic shift is radical. It says their gain is external. It's a fig from their tree. Your focus must remain on your own tree, on acting with integrity, with diligence, with kindness, regardless of the recognition. Your justice is in the action itself, not in the external payoff. Think of a time you felt deeply wronged, overlooked, someone broke a promise, you carried a burden others avoided. The natural reaction is to dwell on the injustice. To nurse the grievance, the Amor Fati practice asks a different question. In that moment of perceived unfairness, what virtue was being offered to me? Was it the chance to practice forgiveness, truly and without expectation? The opportunity to demonstrate integrity by doing the right thing even when no one was watching. The call to cultivate resilience by bearing a load with grace. The unfair event didn't happen to you, it happened for you, as raw material for building a more virtuous character. That's the ultimate fairness. The universe provides the friction. You provide the polish, so recall one specific instance where you felt the sting of unfair treatment. Now, gently set aside the story of what they did or didn't do. Look only at your own response. What single virtue could you have chosen to cultivate more fully in that moment? And how does choosing to see that moment as a gym for your character, rather than a court for your grievance, begin to change its meaning? Athletes lift weights to get ready for the game. Stoics, they looked for small discomforts to get ready for life. That's voluntary discomfort. It's the training ground. That's where Amor Fati becomes a reflex, not just a theory. It's not about pain for its own sake. It's a deliberate exercise, a controlled exercise, proving to yourself that you're stronger than your circumstances. You build a reservoir of confidence. You choose to step into mild hardship. So when an involuntary hardship arrives, you don't panic. You've been here before, in a sense. You know you can endure. The Stoic teacher Musonius Rufus was a strong advocate for this. He taught that just as an athlete trains for competition, a person trains for life. And life, he noted, is full of unexpected turns. He argued for simple food, modest clothing, enduring cold and heat with resilience. The goal, he said, is to make the body the obedient servant of the mind, not its master. This training proves a vital truth to yourself, that your well-being doesn't depend on perfect external conditions. You can be content with less. Seneca echoed this in his letters. He would periodically practice poverty, wear rough clothing, sleep on a hard bed, eat only the plainest food for a set time. He wrote that he did this to reassure himself. The things fortune had not taken from him, she could not take. It was a vaccination against the fear of loss. In a modern context, this looks nothing like self-punishment. It looks like conscious minor choices that gently stretch your comfort zone. It's taking a walk on a chilly day without rushing to bundle up. Just to feel the air and remember you're okay. It's skipping a meal occasionally, not for a diet but to experience hunger as a sensation, to appreciate the next meal more deeply. It's turning off the constant stream of digital entertainment for an evening, to sit with silence and your own thoughts. It's choosing the harder, more honest conversation over the easy, avoidant one. Each of these small acts is a repetition, a mental and physical repetition. It builds the muscle of acceptance. When you voluntarily feel a little cold, you're teaching your nervous system and your mind. That discomfort is a signal, not a threat. You're practicing the pause between stimulus and response. When life later hands you a much colder, involuntary situation, a financial chill, an emotional frost, you have a deeper knowing. You've already looked at discomfort and said, I can be here, I can find my center within this. This practice transforms fate from a terrifying unknown into a series of conditions. Conditions you've already learned to navigate in miniature. So here's a challenge for the coming week. Choose one small, voluntary discomfort, just one. It must be safe. It must be a conscious choice. Perhaps it's waking up 30 minutes earlier to read or meditate before the day begins. Perhaps it's a 5-minute cold shower at the end of your normal routine. Maybe it's committing to a digital sunset, putting all screens away 2 hours before bed. As you do it, observe your internal resistance. Listen to the voice that says this is unnecessary or silly or too hard. That voice is the very comfort you are training to transcend. And then, in the quiet after the act, notice the subtle confidence that follows. That's the seed of Amor Fati taking root, proving to you that you can not only accept your fate, but meet it with a strength you deliberately built. The hardest test of loving fate comes from the people we lose. Philosophy meets the human heart here. Stoicism offers a clear-eyed view and a compassionate one. Nothing in nature is permanent. Every relationship is a gift on loan. Amor Fati in this realm means holding two truths. You love the person fully with your whole heart, and you accept the natural law of change. Separation isn't a flaw in the design. It is the design itself. To love your fate in love means cherishing the connection without demanding it last forever in its current form. Seneca wrote about this after losing his friend. He said, "Don't mourn because something was taken. Give thanks because it was given." We're wrong to believe possession is everlasting. The wise person enjoys the present moment of their blessings. They don't demand a guarantee of the future. This isn't cold detachment. It's the warmest form of gratitude. The possibility of loss is what makes love so precious. Think of a friendship that faded over time. The Stoic view asks you to see this not as a failure, but as a completed chapter. That person entered your life for a season. They offered companionship, laughter, support exactly when you needed it. The fact that your paths later diverged doesn't erase the gift of that season. Amor Fati is loving that entire arc, the joyful beginning, the rich middle, and the quiet, gentle ending. It's finding meaning in the full story, not just the parts that felt easy. This applies with profound gravity to losing a loved one. Grief, in this light, isn't an enemy to be defeated. It's the natural, loving response to a profound gift being returned. It's the price of admission for a deep connection. The pain you feel is a measure of the love that was there. To practice Amor Fati here isn't to stop feeling the loss. It's to allow the grief while also asking a courageous question. How can I honor this person's impact on my life? How can I carry forward the best of what they taught me or the love we shared? This turns passive sorrow into active remembrance. It finds meaning in the legacy, not just the absence. So think of a past relationship that ended with some pain. A romance, a friendship, a family connection that changed. Instead of focusing solely on the ending, ask yourself this. What is one positive way that relationship contributed to who you are today? Did it teach you about your own capacity for patience? Did it show you a quality you value in others? Did its ending steer you toward a new path? That positive thread, however fine, is the fingerprint of Amor Fati on your heart. It's you beginning to love the entire story because it is irrevocably your own. Anger is a protest against reality. Amor Fati is the peace treaty. When you feel that heat, that sense of outrage, that someone crossed a line, that's a choice. A philosophical one, the Stoics, Seneca, they saw anger as a kind of madness, a temporary insanity, and it rests on one judgment, the judgment that this should not have happened. That it's an offense, but the Stoic correction is this: if it happened, it could happen, and if it could happen, given the world and the people in it, it should have happened. It was necessary, the outcome of all the causes leading to this moment. Your anger is a refusal. You're arguing with cause and effect, arguing with physics, with human nature, arguing with reality itself. Seneca wrote that no plague has cost us more. He called anger the most hideous emotion, the most frenzied, because the angry person suffers more than whoever they're angry at. Resentment is a poison you prepare for someone else, but you drink it. It corrodes your peace from the inside. It chains you to a past event, gives that event power over your present. Amor Fati is the key. It's the decision to drop the protest, to lay down the arms of your grievance, not because what happened was okay, but because fighting a fact you can't change is a war you can only lose. So in the heat of the moment, what do? There's a process, a Stoic intervention. First, the pause. That's the critical step. When you feel the surge, don't act. Don't speak. If you can, step away. Create space between the trigger and your response. Second, in that space, examine the judgment. Ask yourself, what story am I telling? What is the should that was violated? I should have been treated fairly. They should have known better. This should not have happened to me. See that judgment. Third, challenge it with Amor Fati. Remind yourself this happened. Therefore, it was possible. Given who they are, the circumstances, the chain of causes, this was the outcome. I may not like it. I may need to set a boundary, but I cannot change the event itself. My task is to accept the reality of it, then choose my next move from clarity, not fury. Finally, reframe the fuel. Ask, what does this event make possible for my character? Does it offer a chance to practice forgiveness? Does it show where I was too attached to an outcome? Does it strengthen my resolve to act with integrity? This turns the anger from a destructive fire into a forge for your virtue. Take a common resentment. A coworker takes credit for your idea. The initial judgment is injustice. They stole what was mine. This should not have happened. The anger burns. The Stoic pause lets you see the picture. Maybe that person acts from fear, from insecurity. Maybe the system rewards that behavior. It doesn't make it right, but it makes it understandable. Your Amor Fati is to accept that this, sadly, is a thing that happens in the world. Your power is in your response. You can choose to communicate more clearly next time. You can build a reputation through consistent work. You can practice the inner freedom of knowing your own worth, regardless of the credit. You reclaim your energy from the resentment and invest it in building something no one can take. So here's a prompt. Identify one lingering resentment. Toward a person, an institution, a past version of yourself. Take a piece of paper, write down two things. First, write the story of the injustice, simply and clearly. Then, below it, write this question. How is holding onto this resentment harming me more than the original event ever did? Is it stealing my peace? Is it coloring my view of new people? Is it keeping me stuck in an old story? seeing that self-harm in writing is often the first step toward laying that burden down, toward signing your own peace treaty with the past. You spend a lot of energy living in a universe that never happened. That rerun in your head, the constant what if, it steals your attention from the only moment you're actually in. Amor Fati is about seeing that clearly. The past isn't a list of choices you missed. It's a single road, the one that brought you here, and it's in that category of things you can't control. To love your fate is to accept that past as the only one that could have gotten you to this present, your only point of action. Marcus Aurelius put it simply. The past is gone, the future isn't here, you have the present. That's not an abstract idea, it's a tool. When your mind drifts into that other timeline, you're leaving your post. You're abandoning the one place where you have any power. Think of a river, you're standing in the current. You can't go upstream and change the water that's already gone by. All the energy you spend wishing it came from a different mountain is energy you're not using to navigate the current, to steer toward the bank you want. The river's past course is fixed. Your relationship to it is your choice. Take a big life decision. Maybe you picked a certain career. Years later, you see friends in other fields and you wonder, what if I'd taken that other internship? What if I'd moved to that other city? Your mind builds this whole story. A more successful you, a happier you in that other life. The story feels real, it has weight, but it's a phantom. It's a fiction built on a stack of assumptions. Amor Fati cuts through that daydream with a grounding fact. Given who you were, with the information you had, and the situation you were in, you made the choice you made. That choice started the chain that led to who you are now. The skills you have, the resilience you've built, even the regrets you feel, all of that is the material of your present. The other path is an illusion. It never existed. The only path is the one you're on. So here's a simple practice. Next time you catch yourself starting that sentence in your mind, if only, just stop. For a moment, see the thought, then redirect it. Don't say, if only I had taken that job. Say, given that I didn't take that job and I'm here now, what's one thing I can do today? That small shift in language is a huge shift in philosophy. It moves you from regret to agency. It trades a fantasy for a step. You're not a victim of a past you can't change. You're the author of a present you can. The river keeps flowing. You can't change its source, but you can learn to read its currents, to use its energy. To love the journey for the strength it asks of you. The alternate path is a mirage that leaves you thirsty. Amor Fati is deciding to drink from the water that's actually here. Suffering is inevitable, but meaningless suffering is optional. That's the choice Stoicism gives you. The pain itself, the hardship, the loss, that part arrives uninvited. You don't control that, but the meaning it carries, the purpose you assign to it, that's your territory. Amor Fati is planting a flag there. It's deciding this difficult experience won't be a pointless affliction. It'll be a test of your character, your values, your capacity to grow. We don't choose the pain, but we choose what it signifies. We can decide this period of struggle is teaching us a deeper empathy for others. We can frame it as a forge for our resilience, tempering our spirit under pressure. We can see it as a brutal but honest mirror, clarifying what we truly value when the comforts are stripped away. This isn't passive acceptance, it's an active, creative act of meaning-making. It's the highest form of loving your fate because you're collaborating with it to build a wiser self. The Stoic teacher Epictetus lived this. Historical accounts suggest he lived with a physical challenge, a lameness in his leg. One story says a cruel master once twisted his leg violently. As the bone was stressed, Epictetus calmly said, "You will break it." And when it did break, he said, "Did I not tell you it would break?" He later reflected on this not as a tragedy, but as a demonstration. He said his lameness was an opportunity. It tested his philosophy. It proved that his worth, his tranquility, his moral purpose were not located in his body, but in his reasoned choice. He transformed a source of potential shame into the very evidence of his freedom. Consider a modern parallel, someone navigating a long-term health challenge. The daily reality is demanding. Routines, limitations, discomforts they did not choose. Viewed one way, it's a curse, a thief of a normal life. But through the lens of Amor Fati, it can be reframed. It becomes a relentless, involuntary masterclass in patience. It teaches a minute-by-minute lesson in listening to one's body. It can forge a profound compassion, a unique ability to connect with others who are struggling. The illness didn't grant these gifts willingly. The individual chose to extract them from the experience. They decided their suffering would mean something beyond itself. So here's a practice. Bring to mind a current or past hardship, a professional failure, a period of loneliness, a family conflict, a personal limitation. Now, consciously and deliberately, assign a new, empowering meaning to it. Complete one of these sentences silently or write it down. This experience taught me, this hardship strengthened my because of this. I now understand, perhaps you find. This taught me the quiet strength of asking for help. Or this strengthened my resolve to live according to my own values, not others' expectations. Or because of this, I now understand that joy can exist alongside difficulty. You're not rewriting history, you're interpreting it with agency. You're taking the raw, difficult stone of a past event and carving an inscription of your own design. In that act, you stop being a character who was harmed by the story, and you become the author who gives the story its point. The suffering happened, but its meaning was waiting for you to decide. The Stoics would end their day with a kind of conversation with themselves, a review of the day, really, looking at how they had aligned with nature. It was a nightly practice, not about scrolling through things, but about looking back over the hours. The point wasn't to judge, it was to learn, to see where they had accepted their fate and where they had resisted it. The goal wasn't perfection, it was alignment, a gentle steering back toward the way things are. Seneca wrote about this. In his work on anger, he described going to his quarters each evening. He would ask his own spirit questions. What bad habit did you cure today? What fault did you resist? In what part are you better? This wasn't about guilt. It was about accountability. He was auditing his day for virtue, not productivity, for his adherence to nature's laws, checking his internal compass, making sure it pointed toward acceptance. Toward reasoned action. You can do this with a simple template. Just a few quiet minutes before sleep. Ask yourself 3 questions. First, what did I find myself resisting today? Be specific, a comment from a coworker, a change in plans, a mistake you made. Just name the event without adding more judgment. Second, how did I respond in that moment? Did I feel anger, silent resentment? Did I try to control something uncontrollable? Observe that reaction with curiosity, like a scientist studying a pattern. Third, and this is where loving your fate takes root, how could I have practiced more acceptance? What would embracing that exact moment have looked like? Maybe taking a deep breath before speaking, or acknowledging another perspective without agreeing. It might have been just saying, this is the reality right now. My power is in how I meet it. This review isn't about rewriting the past, it's about training your future responses. By reflecting on where you fought your fate, you prepare yourself for similar moments. You're rehearsing acceptance in your own mind, so here's an invitation. For the next 3 nights, try it, just 3. Find a quiet moment, ask these 3 questions of your day. Write down a word or 2 if it helps. Notice, without criticism, the patterns that appear. You might see your resistance clusters around a certain situation. Or that acceptance comes easier at some times. This awareness is the first fruit of the practice, and watch the next morning. Do you feel a slight shift? A little more space between an event and your reaction. A subtle readiness to meet the day as it comes. That small shift is the quiet, daily work of learning to love your fate. Loving fate might seem like giving up on goals, but it's actually the only way to pursue them without being broken by them. That's where Stoic ambition finds its power. It's a paradox. We're told to chase dreams with relentless passion, to tie our identity to a specific outcome, and when that outcome doesn't arrive, we feel like failures. Our self-worth crumbles. Amor Fati offers a different path, a love for the effort itself, the virtuous action, while holding the result lightly. The Stoics had a tool for this. A mental clause they added to every endeavor, the reserved clause. You do your absolute best, you commit fully to the action, but you simultaneously reserve in your mind a complete acceptance of whatever outcome follows. As if you had willed it yourself, this separates your worth, which is internal and based on your effort, from the external success, which is never fully in your control. Epictetus illustrated this with an analogy. He said, "Remember, you ought to behave as at a banquet. Is a dish brought to you, stretch out your hand and take a portion politely. Does it pass by you, do not stop it. Has it not yet come, do not project your desire toward it, but wait until it reaches you. Apply this to your pursuits." The dish is the opportunity, the result. Your job is to stretch out your hand with skill and diligence when it's your turn. But if it passes by, you do not rage against the table. You keep your composure. Your excellence was in how you reached, not in what you received. He also spoke of playing a game of ball. Your virtue lies in throwing the ball with skill and catching it with art. Whether the other player catches it or drops it is their business. Your worth is in the quality of your play, not the final score. Seneca echoed this. He wrote that the good person will perform all their duties but will leave the result to nature. They do what is right for its own sake. The reward is in the doing. This mindset transforms ambition from a desperate gamble into a peaceful practice. You are no longer a hostage to fortune. You are a free agent expressing your character through action. See this in a modern fitness journey. The goal might be to run a marathon or lift a certain weight. If your happiness depends solely on crossing that finish line or hitting that number, you set yourself up for anguish. An injury, a bad day, any setback feels like a personal defeat. The Amor Fati approach is to love the daily process, to find satisfaction in the early morning discipline, in the feeling of your body growing stronger, in the mindfulness of each stride or each repetition. The race day becomes a celebration of that process, not the sole source of its meaning. If you finish, you celebrate the culmination. If you cannot run, you adapt with grace, loving the new path your effort has revealed. Perhaps a deeper understanding of recovery or a shift to a different form of movement. Your worth was built daily in the effort, not in a single moment of outcome. Apply it to a creative project, writing a book, composing music, building a business. You pour your heart into the work. You love the act of creation itself. The problem solving, the learning, the small breakthroughs. You do everything within your control to make it excellent and share it with the world. But the public reception, the sales, the reviews, that is the dish being passed around the banquet. You cannot control who takes a portion. Your love is for the work, for the integrity of the effort. This protects your creative spirit. It allows you to continue creating, regardless of applause or silence, because the true reward was in the making. So here is a reflective prompt. Choose one current goal you are working toward, professional, personal, creative, or relational. Now take a moment to write down two things. First, write the desired outcome, the finish line you have in mind. Then, right beside it, write a detailed list of the daily processes, the virtuous efforts that this goal requires. The discipline, the learning, the patience, the courage. Which of these two lists contains elements that are truly 100% within your control? Your focus, your love, your sense of accomplishment belongs with that list. How can you begin today to transfer more of your emotional investment from the outcome you desire to the quality of the effort you can give? Your fate isn't just your own private story. It's one thread in this huge human tapestry, and loving it that connects you to everyone. That's where Amor Fati stops being just a personal practice and becomes something social. The Stoics had a word for this, oikosis. It's this sense of belonging that starts with how you care for yourself, and then it just extends to your family, your community, to all of humanity. They thought of themselves as citizens of the world, cosmopolitans. To love your fate is to see it as one specific version of a universal story. The same forces fortune, misfortune, they shape your life, and they shape every life. That recognition, it dissolves the isolation. Your struggle doesn't mean you're uniquely cursed. It means you're human, and in that shared humanity, there's a deep source of compassion. Marcus Aurelius kept coming back to this in his private writings. He'd remind himself, the people who anger him, the people he envies, the people he loves, they all share the same fundamental experiences. We all eat, we sleep, we experience illness and health, we feel joy and grief, and we will all one day reach the end. He wrote, "You will soon be dead, and you are not yet simple, nor undisturbed, nor without suspicion that you are harmed by externals, nor kindly disposed to all, nor convinced that wisdom and acting justly are the same." That was his check against self-importance. His own imperial problems, as vast as they were just human problems written large. That perspective builds a profound empathy. When you're frustrated by someone, you can remember they're navigating their own fate with their own limited vision, their own burdens. Your capacity to love your own difficult path, it increases your capacity to understand theirs. So how do you bring this from philosophy into daily feeling? In a moment of hardship, pause, consider the scale of human experience. If you're grieving a loss, know that right now, countless others are sitting with their own version of that emptiness. If you're anxious about money, recognize that this worry has visited millions of homes across history. If you're battling a private fear or shame, understand you're in a crowded room, even if the lights are dim. This doesn't minimize your pain, it contextualizes it. It places your specific struggle inside the grand, shared narrative of being alive. You're not alone in the dark. You're in the common human condition where difficulty is part of the contract that creates a bridge from your experience to others. Your specific challenge might be a career setback. Someone else's is a health diagnosis, another's is a family conflict. The details differ, but the core experience facing an unchosen reality, that's the same. Your journey of learning to accept and love your own fate, it can become a source of quiet solidarity. It can make you quicker to offer kindness, slower to judge, more authentic in your connections, because you know, behind every face is someone learning to love a fate they did not choose. So here's a prompt. Bring to mind a current challenge, something that feels uniquely yours. Now shift your gaze outward. Consider someone in your life, or even a stranger you've seen, who's facing a completely different kind of difficulty. Can you see the common thread, not in the circumstances, but in the human experience of meeting something hard? How might embracing your own path with more compassion help you offer a truer, quieter compassion to them? In loving your fate, you don't retreat from the world, you join it more fully, recognizing that every story, however different, is woven from the same strong and fragile thread. You can't hear acceptance in a room full of complaints. Amor Fati needs quiet, deliberate quiet, because the world is a broadcast, opinions, advice, constant noise. Social media, the news, the voices of friends, it all creates a crowded room in your mind. And in that room, it's hard to tell your own judgment from the chorus outside. How can you love your fate if you can't even hear your own thoughts about it? The Stoics knew this. They practiced withdrawal, not to escape life, but to return to their own inner counsel, to commune with their own reason, and through it with nature. Seneca wrote about this. He praised solitude. He said it wasn't loneliness. He called it a meeting with oneself. He wrote, "Be in a crowd as much as you must, but be alone as much as you can." When you're alone, you're with a person you can't run from. You have to see yourself. In that quiet, you can examine your judgments without the filter of others. You can ask, is this my resistance, or am I borrowing someone else's outrage? Is this my disappointment, or am I measuring my life against a standard society gave me? Silence is the blank page, where you write your own interpretation, free from the edits of the crowd. Think of a major decision, changing careers, ending something, moving. In the thick of it, you heard many voices, caution, boldness, their fears, their unfulfilled dreams. The noise can paralyze, then recall a moment of clarity. It probably came in quiet, on a long drive, a walk, early in the morning. That clarity was Amor Fati waiting to be heard. Your own reason, your own nature, finally getting a word in. So how do you do this? You don't need a wilderness retreat. You need small pockets of silence. Woven into ordinary days, maybe the first 20 minutes of your morning without your phone. No news, no messages, just you, your thoughts, maybe a cup of tea. Or a daily walk without headphones, noticing your steps, the air, the movement of your own mind, or sitting for 5 minutes after lunch, doing nothing. No goal, no technique, just being present with the quiet. In these spaces, you're not seeking an answer. You're creating the conditions where acceptance can arise. Letting the mental dust settle so you can see what's truly there. You might notice a persistent worry about a situation you've been fighting. Instead of engaging it, you just note it. Ah, there's that thought again, and in that observation, its power softens. The space around it grows, and in that space, a new possibility. Maybe the possibility of saying, this is my reality right now. What if I stopped arguing with it? Here's an invitation. Tomorrow, schedule 10 minutes. 10 minutes of quiet solitude. Any time that works. Sit somewhere comfortable without a device. Set a timer if you want. For those 10 minutes, just observe your thoughts about your current life. Don't judge them, don't fix them, just notice them pass by. See if you can find one thought that feels like a complaint against your fate. Don't argue with it, just acknowledge it's there. Then, in the quiet after the timer, ask one question. If that complaint were a cloud passing in the sky of my mind, what is the sky itself like? That vast, quiet sky is where your Amor Fati lives. The Stoic who loves fate can laugh at it. And laugh at themselves. That might seem strange because we think of philosophy as serious, but humor isn't the opposite of wisdom. It's a companion to it. A light touch shows a deep acceptance. It means you're not caught up in the ego story. You've created some distance, enough to see the situation and your own reaction from a slightly higher place. This isn't joking to avoid pain. It's seeing the irony in being human. Our big plans, our serious worries, they often sit on foundations of pure chance. To laugh is to see that gap. It's a form of mastery. It shows you're not crushed by circumstances but free inside them. The Stoics themselves weren't humorless. Take Cato the Younger. He was a senator known for his unbending integrity, but historical accounts also note his sharp wit. Even in the tense politics that ended the Republic, he used humor to deflect insults, to expose hypocrisy, and he never lost his composure. Seneca, in his letters, often wrote with a wry tone about human folly. He knew that taking yourself too seriously was a kind of vanity. A belief that your personal story is too important to be touched by the absurd. Real resilience includes this capacity for lightness, because when you can spot the ironic twist in a hard moment, you've already started to transcend it. So how do you apply it? Next time you're in a truly frustrating spot, pause. Look for the absurdity, the cosmic joke. You rush to an important meeting and your shirt catches on a door handle. A button pops off. The universe isn't targeting you. It's offering a lesson in humility wrapped in a minor inconvenience. Can you see the humor in the timing? The sheer, ridiculous contrast between your serious purpose and this silly, physical mishap. Laughing, even just inside, diffuses the charge. It instantly creates that space between the event and your reaction. You stop being the victim of a ruined shirt. You become an observer of a comedic scene you happen to be in. This practice isn't about diminishing real pain. It's about reclaiming agency with life's minor, daily irritations, the driver who cuts you off, the printer that jams as you print your important document, the coffee you spill right before a call. Each one is a tiny invitation to choose your response. Anger tightens your chest, it clouds your mind. Finding the ironic, funny angle releases that tension. It lets you say, of course this would happen now, and then you move on. Your peace stays intact. Here's a prompt. Think of one recent annoyance, something that genuinely irritated you yesterday or this week. Now challenge yourself to find one genuinely funny or ironic aspect about it. Was there a poetic justice, a ridiculous contradiction? Did your reaction, looking back, seem a bit over the top for what happened? Just identifying that single thread of humor can shift the entire memory, from a grievance to a story. It turns a moment you resisted into a moment you can, in a new way, accept. And in that acceptance, you might just find the beginnings of a smile. Step outside. Every tree, every season, every storm, they're all practicing Amor Fati. They don't argue with the wind, they don't resent the winter. A forest doesn't hold a grudge against the fire that clears the floor, making way for new growth. It's the Stoics' greatest teacher, this silent lesson in how to love a fate you didn't choose. For Marcus Aurelius, nature was the visible expression of the logos, that rational principle ordering everything. To watch nature is to watch acceptance in its purest form. It shows how to bend without breaking, how to yield without surrendering, and how every end is woven into a new beginning. Marcus constantly turned to nature for perspective. He wrote of reeds bending in the river's current, not fighting the flow but moving with it. He reflected on ripe fruit falling from a tree, seeing it not as a loss but as the fulfillment of its purpose. A storm isn't an angry outburst. It's a necessary function of a living system, clearing the air, watering the earth, and we are part of that same system. Our personal storms, our seasons of loss and renewal, they operate by the same laws. The tree doesn't complain when its leaves turn color and fall. It accepts this as part of its cycle, conserving energy, preparing for the quiet work of winter that leads to spring. Our resistance to our own cycles is what creates so much of the suffering. You can turn this into a practice. Go into a natural space with a new intention. Don't go just to escape, go to learn. Find a quiet spot and simply watch. Watch how a river never tries to push a boulder out of its way by force. It flows around it, over it, or patiently wears it down over centuries. Its goal isn't to remove the obstacle. Its nature is to flow, and so it adapts its path without complaint. See how clouds form, darken, release their rain, and then dissolve back into clear sky. They don't cling to their form, they accept the process of becoming and unbecoming. Now relate this back. That difficult person in your life is your boulder. Can you, like the river, find a way to flow around their rigidity without exhausting yourself trying to move them? That period of grief or uncertainty is your winter. Can you, like the tree, accept it as a necessary season of rest and inward focus, trusting it holds the quiet potential for a new beginning? Nature doesn't rush its processes. An oak tree takes 100 years to reach its full stature. It accepts the slow pace of its own growth. And how often do we rage against our own timeline, demanding blossoms when we've only just planted the seed? So here's an invitation. Sometime in the next few days, give yourself 15 minutes. Go to a park, a garden, a trail, or even sit by a window with a clear view of the sky. Leave your devices behind. Your only task is to find one example of acceptance. It might be a weed growing through a crack in the pavement, embracing the only place it was given to grow. It might be an old stone, smoothed and shaped by endless weather, bearing the marks of its history without protest. Observe it deeply. then ask yourself this quiet question. What one current challenge in my life could I meet with the same graceful acceptance as this part of nature? You are not separate from these cycles. You are a conscious participant in them. By aligning your attitude with the effortless acceptance of the natural world, you stop fighting your place in the universe and start loving your role within its story. Amor Fati isn't something you decide once. It's a daily vote, a vote for the life you're actually in. And those votes, they build a legacy. You choose acceptance over resistance in the morning. You review your alignments in the evening. You're casting a ballot for a specific future self. This practice compounds quietly over years. The emotional volatility starts to smooth. The highs feel less like manic triumphs. The lows feel less like catastrophic failures. They become part of a flowing current, a narrative you learn to read. To navigate with skill, someone who's practiced this for decades looks back. They see unexpected turns, losses, unexpected joys. They don't see a ledger of regrets. They see a coherent story, their story, one they learn to embrace chapter by chapter. Seneca wrote about this in his letters. He reflected on the unity of a life well lived. He said life is incomplete without a thread of purpose, a consistent character. To die well, you must live well, and living well meant living in agreement with nature. That includes making peace with every phase of your past. He advised that at any age you should be able to look back and say, I used the materials I was given. I loved my fate, not because it was easy, because it was mine. That's the long view harvest of Amor Fati, a profound equanimity. The storms still come. But you've built a home within yourself that can't be washed away. Consider two end-of-life perspectives. One person is filled with the quiet rustle of if only I had taken that risk. If only I had spoken my heart. If only I had forgiven sooner. Their memories are a gallery of alternate paths, haunted by the ghosts of choices unmade. Their energy is tied up in rewriting a script that's long since been published. Contrast that with someone who's practiced acceptance. Their reflection is different. They see the same events, the failed business, the lost love, the missed opportunity, but they see them as necessary bends in the river. They think that hardship taught me resilience. That ending made space for a new beginning. That was when I learned what I was truly made of. There's a gentle coherence, a lack of war with their own history. This isn't about a perfect, regret-free life. It's about the quality of your relationship with your own story. The daily practice of Amor Fati is like building a boat, plank by plank, while already at sea. You're using the very waves that threaten to toss you as the reason to build something sturdy. Over time, you're no longer just battling each wave. You have a vessel. You have a direction. You can love the sea, even in its tempests, because you've learned to sail. So project your mind forward. Imagine yourself older, looking back on the life you're living right now. Not with judgment, with the compassionate wisdom of that future self. What one current source of resistance would that older self most gently urge you to lay down? What single chapter of your present story would they point to and say, this is the part to accept with all your heart, for it's shaping everything that comes after? The peace you will feel then is being built by the choices you make in this quiet moment, and in all the moments that follow. Some fates just don't feel lovable. The Stoics understood that. They had a path for those hours, when a loss is so deep it takes your breath, when the pain is so sharp it blocks out everything else. Trying to love that moment can seem like a cruel joke, and it's okay to admit that. This isn't a demand to feel grateful for agony. It's a map for getting through it when you can't see any shore. In those moments, the goal changes. It shifts from loving fate to something more immediate, to bearing it, to enduring it. And in that act of endurance, you protect the one sacred thing left in your control, your character. The Stoic teacher Epictetus knew about hardship. He lived with the memory of his own. His guidance for this terrain was clear. He said, bear and forbear. That was his phrase: endure and renounce. Endure the external blow, renounce the internal complaint that makes it worse. He never said you wouldn't feel the pain. He acknowledged its reality. His focus was on what happens next in your mind. He taught that your body could be in chains, but your will did not have to be. In overwhelming grief, your will's task becomes very simple and very difficult: to not be broken, to not become cruel or despairing or unjust just because you are in pain. That itself is a form of deep acceptance. It's accepting the burden without letting it corrupt you. Seneca showed this. In his letters of consolation to friends who had suffered loss, he didn't tell them to cheer up. He didn't rush to find a silver lining. He met them in their sorrow. He acknowledged the weight of it. His consolation was to remind them of their own inner resources. The strength of the human spirit that has borne such things forever. He wrote that we are wrong to think any misfortune is unprecedented. Grief is part of the human contract. Knowing that doesn't erase the pain, but it can place a hand on your shoulder in the dark. You are not the first to walk this path. The goal isn't to stop feeling. It's to feel without being destroyed by the feeling, to let the wave of grief pass through you without it carrying away your core. So what does this look like in a real, searing moment? Imagine someone getting news of a sudden, devastating loss. The initial shock is a void. Thought is impossible. In that hour, Stoic practice isn't about philosophy. It's about the next breath. It's the basic animal act of endurance. The task shrinks to the smallest unit. Get through the next minute, then the next. Don't add a layer of self-judgment for your pain. Don't criticize yourself for not being strong enough. Your only job is to not let the pain turn you into someone you are not. Maybe that means making a cup of tea because your hands need something to do. Maybe it means saying no to a well-meaning but overwhelming visitor. Maybe it's just sitting quietly and letting the tears come without a story attached. That is bearing, that's the foundation, and much later, understanding might be built on it. Even a form of love for less acute but still heavy struggles: a chronic illness, a long family conflict, a persistent depression. The practice is similar but stretched over time. The goal isn't to love every difficult day. It's to endure each day without letting the difficulty define your character. You might say to yourself, today I will be kind to one person, even in pain. Today I will complete one small, responsible task. Today I will not speak from my anger. Those are victories of endurance. That's you, protecting your inner citadel while the siege rages outside. This is the Stoic response when acceptance feels impossible. You don't have to love the storm. You just have to remember you are not the storm. You are the one sheltering the flame of your reason and your integrity until the winds pass. If everything's already fated, then loving your fate, amor fati, might just sound like slavery. But the Stoics saw it as the opposite. They saw it as real freedom. It's a subtle position. It's not total chaos, and it's not total control either. For them, the universe moves by a rational, causal order. That's fate. But inside that movement, our faculty of choice, our volition, is our own. Our freedom isn't about changing the script, it's in how we read our lines. So loving your fate becomes the highest use of your freedom. You're not a puppet, you're a conscious participant, choosing the spirit of your part. There's an old Stoic analogy. A dog is tied to a cart. The cart is moving down a road pulled by horses. That's fate: the direction, the speed, the destination. The dog is on a leash. And the dog has a choice. It can dig in its feet, fight, and be dragged painfully along the ground. Or it can choose to trot alongside, willingly, keeping pace. The cart's path is fixed. The dog's attitude is its own. To be dragged is to resist with bitterness. To trot willingly is amor fati. Our free will, our human power, sits entirely in that internal posture. Our yes or no to what happens. The Stoic philosopher Chrysippus went deep into this. He argued for what we'd now call compatibilism, that fate and free will can coexist. He saw the universe as a web of causes and effects, a deterministic system, but inside it, our character, our desires, our judgments, they're themselves causes. They're links in the chain. Your decision to act with courage today is both a free choice and a necessary outcome, an outcome of your past, your values, your reasoning right now. Your will isn't some outside force breaking into a mechanical world. It's an integral, reasoning part of that world's machinery. So to align your will with fate isn't to surrender. It's to bring your own rational nature into harmony with the rational nature of the whole, and that harmony is freedom. Think of an actor with a script. The plot, the scenes, the other characters, even their own lines, that's all written. That's the fate of the role. The actor can't change the ending or rewrite a scene. But inside that given structure, their freedom is vast. They bring their interpretation, their emotional depth, their timing, their passion. One actor might play a tragic scene with resignation. Another with defiant rage. The script is the same. The humanity they pour into it is their own. Amor Fati is choosing to play your role, however hard, with your full commitment. You're not the author, but you're the only one who can bring your character to life with integrity. So here's a thing to sit with. Bring to mind one part of your life that feels largely fated. Your family of origin, a talent or a limitation you were born with, the historical era you live in, or a past event that now feels like an unchangeable anchor. And then explore this. Within that given reality, where exactly does your free will operate? How do you exercise choice in your attitude toward it? If your family history is a certain story, how do you choose to tell the next chapter? If you have a particular talent, how do you choose to cultivate it, or maybe choose to balance it with other things? If a past event is a fixed point, how do you choose to let it define, or not define, who you are now? In that space between the event and your evaluation of it, you'll find your leash to the cart. And in finding that, you find the power to stop being dragged and to begin willingly to trot. Our ancestors had plagues and invasions. We have notifications and algorithms. But the need for Amor Fati is the same. The digital world is this new shared external. It's a constant sea of information and opinion and curated lives. It runs on its own logic, its own algorithms, far outside anything we control. To love your fate here isn't about loving every tweet. It's about accepting this noisy, connected reality as the modern air we breathe. And then, with clear intention, choosing how you move within it. Amor Fati means meeting the digital age not with helpless frustration, but with virtuous engagement. It's deciding to curate your attention with the same care you'd curate your character. Epictetus taught that we're disturbed not by things, but by the views we take of them. That cuts right to digital anxiety. The notification isn't the disturbance. Our belief that we have to respond right away, that we might miss out, that our worth is tied to that little red dot, that's the disturbance. The endless news stream isn't itself a source of despair. Our internal judgment that we have to absorb all of it, that we're responsible for fixing every tragedy it reports, that's what leads to overwhelm. The Stoic practice is to see the stream for what it is, an external impression, and then to exercise our faculty of assent, to pause before we give that impression the power to dictate how we feel. This calls for a modern dichotomy of control. You can't control what trends on a platform. You can't control the divisive headline a news site chooses. You can't control the perfect vacation photos a distant acquaintance posts. Those are all outside your sphere. What's within your sphere? You control which apps are on your phone. You control who you follow and what pages you like. You control whether you scroll mindlessly for an hour or set a timer for 10 minutes. You control whether you engage in a comment section argument or just close the tab. You control the ritual of a digital sunset, putting the screens away to reclaim the quiet of your own mind. Your power lies in these boundaries, in these acts of conscious selection. Think of your social media feed as a crowded, noisy banquet hall. Amor Fati is accepting that the hall exists and will always be noisy, but your freedom is in choosing which table to sit at, which conversations to lean into, and when to excuse yourself for some fresh air. You wouldn't feel obligated to eat every dish passed at a real banquet, especially the ones that upset your stomach. Apply the same discernment online. If a certain account consistently leaves you feeling anxious or inadequate, that's a dish you can politely let pass by. Unfollow, mute, curate. This isn't avoidance. It's the virtuous management of your own mental environment. So here's a practical exercise, a digital audit. Choose one social media platform you use regularly. Open it with a notebook beside you. Scroll for just 2 minutes. As you do, pay attention not to the content, but to your internal reactions. Note which posts trigger a spark of envy. Which headlines provoke a jolt of anger or fear? Which ones inspire genuine connection or curiosity? Then, ask yourself this single question. For one of those negative triggers, what's one small act of control I can exert? Could I unfollow that specific news source? Could I turn off notifications for that app after 7 p.m.? Could I commit to not checking it for the first hour of my day? This is Amor Fati in action. You accept the nature of the platform, and you respond not with resentment, but with a deliberate, graceful adjustment of your own sails. You're learning to love your fate, not by surrendering to the current, but by becoming the skilled navigator of your own attention. Your body tells your mind whether you're resisting or accepting something before you even have a thought. That tightness in your shoulders, the shallow breath you're holding, your jaw clenched, these aren't just signs of stress. They're the physical way your body fights against what's happening. The Stoics knew this link very well. They saw the body as the mind's instrument, its immediate environment. Training one meant training the other. Musonius Rufus taught that just as an athlete trains their body for a sport, we have to train ours for life. For the endurance that Amor Fati asks for, he said the body should be a willing servant to reason, not a distraction. That means listening to its signals and learning to change them. Think about the physiology of resistance. When you get bad news or hit a sudden obstacle, your nervous system reacts, your muscles tense, ready. Your breath gets quick and shallow. That fuels a feeling of panic. Your vision can even narrow, focusing on the threat. That's your biology preparing for a fight. But most of the time now, the fight isn't physical. It's a missed deadline, a hard conversation, a personal letdown. Your body is gearing up for a conflict that isn't there. And by doing that, it tells your mind a story. It screams that this is an emergency, and your mind believes it. That creates a loop. The thought makes tension. The tension reinforces the thought. Now consider the posture of acceptance. An open chest allows a full breath. Relaxed shoulders signal to your nervous system there's no physical threat here. A soft gaze takes in the whole situation, not just the problem. These physical shifts aren't about pretending everything's fine. They're deliberate actions. They interrupt the panic signal. They tell your mind, we can handle this. We're not under siege. We are present, meeting reality as it is. This is where philosophy becomes a practice in the body. You can think your way toward acceptance, but you can also breathe your way there, stand your way there. Here's a simple thing you can do. It takes about 30 seconds. Next time you feel that surge of frustration, stuck in traffic, reading a stressful email, facing a task you've put off, just pause. First, notice where's the tension. In your forehead, your hands, your stomach. Just observe it. Don't judge it. Then take a deliberate action. Let your shoulders drop. Unclench your jaw. Soften your gaze. Look at something in the middle distance. Finally, take 3 slow breaths. Inhale through your nose. Feel your diaphragm expand. Exhale fully through your mouth. With each exhale, you can offer a phrase in your mind. This is what is happening. You're not approving of it. You're just acknowledging the current reality. In your body and in the world, that small act breaks the feedback loop. It takes your physiology back from resistance, puts it in the service of a calm presence. So here's something to try in the coming days. Pick one routine moment of daily friction, maybe the morning commute or checking your work messages. In that moment, make your main goal not to solve the problem right away, but to first notice your physical state. Then do the posture shift, drop the shoulders, soften the gaze, take the 3 breaths, see what changes. Does the same event feel a little less like an emergency? Does a small space open up between the event and your reaction? Your body has been speaking the language of resistance for years. This is how you start teaching it the quieter, stronger dialect of acceptance. Loving your fate frees you to help others with theirs. When you stop fighting your own reality, something shifts. Your energy isn't tied up in an internal war anymore. It becomes available, that calm, that acceptance. It's not just for you. It becomes something you can offer. A person anchored in this way doesn't drain the room. They become a kind of shelter. Marcus Aurelius carried the weight of an empire. In his private writings, he kept coming back to this. His duty was to be useful. And he saw he couldn't be useful if he was inwardly at war with his circumstances. His peace wasn't a luxury, it was a requirement. He wrote that what's not good for the hive isn't good for the bee. Your tranquility isn't selfish, it's the foundation for how you contribute. Think of 2 people. The same friend comes to them in crisis. One person is secretly wrestling with a career setback they can't accept. They listen, but part of their mind is still back in their own struggle. Their responses might be distracted. They might steer the conversation back to their own problems without meaning to. Their own unmet need competes. Now the other person, they've made peace with their own setback. They see it as part of their story, not an open wound. When that friend arrives, this person can offer their full attention. They're not using the conversation as an escape. They're fully there. They offer a stability that isn't shaken by the storm their friend is describing. Their acceptance has created a space inside them, a space where someone else's pain can be held. This is Amor Fati as a practical service. It's the nurse who can sit with a patient's fear because she's made peace with the stress of her shift. It's the parent who can guide a child's tantrum patiently because they accept the chaos as part of the journey. It's the friend who can listen without immediately trying to fix because they trust in the process of growth. Your stability becomes a quiet permission for others to be unsteady. Your acceptance models a way through. So here's a question. Who is one person who benefits from your emotional stability? A partner, a child, a colleague. And then consider this. How might accepting your own challenges more deeply, practicing this in your private moments, improve your ability to be there for them? Your peace isn't a retreat. It's the ground you stand on to reach out and hold the hands of others. Social media pushes this idea of a perfect, chosen fate. Stoicism offers something else, a good life, built on a fate you learn to love. That's the core of Amor Fati. Our culture is obsessed with a perfect life. A flawless series of moments free from hardship where every choice leads to something better. We're taught to chase that, to see any deviation as a failure. But that chase makes us fragile. It ties our worth to conditions that are unstable and mostly outside our control. The perfect life is a myth because life by design includes difficulty. It includes loss, change, the actions of other people. To demand perfection from an imperfect world is to guarantee disappointment. The Stoic ideal isn't the perfect life. It's the good life, and they're not the same. A good life isn't defined by what happens to you. It's defined by your response. It's measured by your character. Your courage, your justice, your temperance, your wisdom. These virtues are internal. They're built through your engagement with reality, exactly as it is, not as you wish it were. Amor Fati is the ultimate expression of that. You're not loving your fate because it's perfect. You're loving it because it's the raw material for building virtue. The good life is an internal achievement. It's available to anyone in any circumstance who focuses on what's truly up to them. Epictetus drew that line clearly. Some things are up to us, he said, and some things are not. Our opinions, our impulses, our desires, our aversions, these are up to us. Our character is up to us. Everything else, our body, our possessions, our reputation, is not fully up to us. The chase for a perfect life is a chase for things in that second category. It's trying to control the uncontrollable. The pursuit of a good life is a focus on the first category. It's cultivating the only thing that's truly yours, your moral purpose. When you make that shift, your center of gravity moves. You stop being a weather vane spun by every change, and you become the steady post. You can see this in two portraits. One person spends hours curating their online presence. They agonize over the perfect photo, the witty caption. Their happiness is tied to likes and shares. A critical comment can shatter their day. They're in constant comparison and anxiety, fighting to maintain an image that reality constantly contradicts. Their life is a performance and it's fragile. Now see another. This person uses technology but isn't used by it. They understand their worth isn't digital. They focus on living with integrity. They show up for work with diligence. They listen to friends with genuine attention. They meet setbacks not as catastrophes, but as chances to practice patience. Their contentment comes from an internal scorecard. Did I act with kindness today? Did I face that with courage? Their life isn't perfect. It has traffic jams and misunderstandings. But it's good, deeply good, because its foundation is built on virtues no external event can take away. So here's an invitation to make this practical. Take a moment, find a quiet space, and write down 3 things, not 3 goals for a perfect life, but 3 core elements of your good life, things entirely within your control. The virtues, the relationships, the daily practices that make a life of character. Maybe your first element is patience with your family. The second is a commitment to honest work. The third is a daily morning walk where you just observe the world. These are the threads of your good life. They don't depend on a promotion or followers or a problem-free existence. They're choices you can make today and every day to build a life that isn't perfect but is genuinely, resiliently good. You start with a moment you didn't choose, a future that felt foreign, and you learn to see it not as a mistake but as material. Amor Fati is that key. It unlocks a resilience that doesn't just endure hardship, but uses it as fuel. It reveals a peace that isn't shaken by circumstance because it's built on accepting circumstance, and it grants a freedom, aligning your will with reality itself. You're no longer a passenger fighting the current, but the navigator who understands the river. Along the way, you gather tools, the dichotomy of control, that compass separating what is yours from what is not. The discipline of assent, the power to pause and reframe your perception before judgment hardens. The daily practice of gratitude, turning even difficulty into a source of thanks. And the quiet rituals, the evening review, voluntary discomfort, moments of solitude that train this love into a reflex. These aren't just ideas, they are practices for a life lived in agreement with nature. Epictetus knew the weight of chains. He offered the clearest summation of this serene power. He said, "Do not seek for things to happen as you wish, but wish for things to happen as they do happen, and your life will go well." That's the heart of it, to will what happens, to meet your story with a quiet, steadfast yes. So here is where your practice begins. Look at your life right now. Choose one event. It could be from your past, a regret that still whispers, or it could be a present challenge, a friction in your day. For just a moment, hold it in your mind. And then consciously begin. See if you can shift your view even slightly, from seeing it as a burden to seeing it as your path. the unique and necessary ground you stand on to become who you are. This single, deliberate choice is the first step in loving your fate.